Lauren, and welcome. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I am wonderful. I'm so glad we were finally able to connect again. It's been a while. So
Yeah,
welcome back.
thank you.
Let me take a minute to introduce you to everybody. So Lauren is a registered dietitian. Lauren helps celebrate your body as well as make the right food choices. So let's learn more about how important food is to our everyday life, and how important what we put on our end of the fork really makes our body feel good, look good, and all the things. Lauren, can you tell me what made you get into, into food and like the whole dietitian part?
Yeah, so my interest in becoming a dietitian truly peaked when I was in high school trying to figure out what I wanted to do. It was actually something where my mom brought up to me that I've been dealing with food allergies my whole life. So I was diagnosed being lactose intolerant when I was 7 years old. So that was always something that I carried with me, was trying to find substitutions for dairy products and things that I loved in my life to make sure I would still enjoy the foods I loved. Not only that, but it started off in preschool, actually. Two of my best friends had major dietary restrictions, one being a major peanut allergy, as well as the other person having PKU, so a protein deficiency and being unable to consume protein. So starting at a young age, I was always trying to figure out what snacks I could bring to class and that everyone would be able to enjoy without putting anyone's life in danger with all these food allergies. So that was definitely something that was brought back up when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And the second my mom said, maybe look into being a nutritionist or dietitian, I was like, all right, let's look into that. It hit every nail on the head of everything I've always wanted to do, of helping others. I absolutely love food and could talk about it for hours and days, especially going into just how food does affect us, and just how it can affect our mood, our mindset, and how we're feeling and going throughout the day. So being able to help people with something that we're surrounded with on a daily basis is just so important and just something I absolutely love to do.
Absolutely. Can you just go back? I have never heard of a protein deficiency. How do you, when it comes to something like that, that's huge. I mean, protein is pretty much found in a ton of food that we eat. How does one continue to get like the vital nutrients that your body needs when somebody might have a protein deficiency?
Yeah, so luckily, as generations have gone by since, there are a lot of products that are labeled as PKU like safe. And there are products that have been created so these individuals can be eating some sort of protein. So everyone, it's kind of like an allergy where everyone can have a different amount of protein depending on how serious their body is taking this. So PKU is actually stands for phenylketonuria. So that's just the long name. It is a very rare inherited disorder that just causes an amino acid in our body to build up. And the change in this really just causes us, it just needs to be broken down, and their bodies just can't do that. And so when they add protein to their body, they really just need to watch how much they are consuming, because it isn't being broken down as our bodies would break it down. So there are different levels of like how much protein someone can consume who has this deficiency or has this disorder. So it is a varying situation, but there are so many products now that you can still eat so much food. You can eat carbs, vegetables, fruit. You just have to be more cautious. The best way I can say it is it's kind of like an allergy. You know what you can and can't eat. You just have to figure out what works for you in those situations. But yeah, it was a truly huge thing that my friend had to and has to deal with. And it's a huge thing in her family. So at a young age, being able to realize that that is something that goes on with certain individuals was just crazy, but it really was very cool to learn about. And when I went to school, I was the one person that knew exactly what that was, because I knew about it from the time I was in preschool. So it was really cool to have that knowledge behind me.
Absolutely. I've actually never heard of it. This was the first time that I've heard of this.
Of course.
One more question that I have, to this day still do not know the difference. What is the actual difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist? Is there a difference?
100%.
Okay.
I'm so glad you asked, because this is a very controversial topic, especially in our field. So when we think about a dietitian versus a nutritionist, easiest way I can put this is you could call yourself a nutritionist. Anyone can call themselves a nutritionist if they wanted to. And being a dietitian requires a ton of education and a ton of background and work in the field of being a dietitian. We go through 1,600 hours of in-field practice, along with our certain accredited hours we need in classes and coursework. Luckily for me, I went through a fast-paced program and was able to sit for the registration exam within 4 years. But generally, and I think now every school is changing it, so in order to be a dietitian, you have to go and get your master's. So it is a 6-year of schooling requirement, where luckily before my requirement was 4 years, and I was able to get those 1,600 hours of in-field service done in those 4 years. But then to become the dietitian and have that name behind you and have that credential, you have to sit for a national dietitian exam. And that is something, it's a very rigorous exam. It is something that is not made to be passed very easily. And it is on every single thing that you learn throughout college. So all of those 4 or 6 years of education you receive, all of the information you've gotten over those school years is what's on your exam. It is every different avenue a dietitian could go into, whether that be clinical, whether that be food service, private practice as a business owner, or even things such as working in a community and working on food situation and nutrition that way. So to go back to it, being a dietitian, you need the schooling, you need the hours in field, and you also need to pass a rigorous exam. And then on top of it, in some states, you're required to get licensed in order to kind of protect yourself, because there are people out there that will say, I'm a nutritionist, I can give any nutrition advice you need. They're not really covered to do that. So that's why we have things like the exam that gives us those credentials of RD or RDN, which just stands for Registered Dietitian or Registered Dietitian Nutritionist. The reason the N is on there is so people understand what a dietitian is. That's how I've always viewed it. Because we are just, I don't want to say we're a more educated nutritionist in a sense, but we have a lot of that background where we went to school for a very long period of time through very, very rigorous coursework to get to where we are, where again, anyone can call themselves a nutritionist. You could take a nutrition course online and then say you're a nutritionist when you don't really have the capability of giving medical nutrition therapy or talk about more of the dietary restriction aspects or any nutrition, let alone, but they do. So those are the differences.
Wow. Well, thank you for clearing that up, because I did not know the exact, science when it came down differently. So everybody listening, just make sure that whoever is giving you food advice is a registered dietitian and not a nutritionist. So thank you for clearing that up. All right. So can you tell us a little bit, or maybe you can kind of guide those of us that have high inflammation in our bodies that can cause chronic illness, and what kind of, maybe give us examples of some foods that we should be eating, or maybe foods that we should absolutely be avoiding to be causing, that are high inflammatory foods that can bring on flare-ups within the chronic illness community.
Yeah. So a lot of the foods that can cause inflammation are going to be foods like our greasy foods, our fast foods, just fried foods in general are one of the huge things. Soda or sugar sweetened beverages can be another one. along with things like red meats and or processed meats. So this could be things like burgers, steaks, hot dogs, sausage, etc. And then also too, for some people, this could also be things such as like white breads or pastries. So in a sense, a lot of these foods are going to be our like more simple sugars. So things that are just more sugar dominant. So those are kind of more of your inflammatory foods. But I can dive in some of those anti-inflammatory foods. So those things you're looking for are going to be more of our fresh foods, of course. My favorites that I love because I'm an Italian and I absolutely love this stuff. Tomatoes are amazing at being anti-inflammatory in the diet. Olive oil, your leafy greens and vegetables like spinach, kale, etc. Things like nuts, almonds and walnuts are really high on that list. Fatty fish is a huge one too. Fish has more of your like omega-3s and fatty acids in there that do help our system. So things like your salmon or just other fatty fishes. And then a lot of our fruits again. So berries are huge with antioxidants and help with anti-inflammatory a lot. But you can find it in a lot of fruits like cherries, oranges, and just anything fresh, I love to say, because I feel like that's a lot of what an anti-inflammatory diet would look like, is having a lot of our fresher foods in there, or more of our lean and white meats is what that would look like too.
How important is getting the foods, or correct me if I'm wrong, I have read in the past, or somebody that I spoke to in the past told me like having organic foods is expensive and can get really, really pricey. So if you're going to eat a fruit that has a peel, then you don't need necessarily to buy organic. Does that make sense? Or did I completely say that the wrong way?
No, it makes sense. So yeah, you're super accurate. A lot of people will say for buying organic versus non-organic, if there is a peel on the food, you don't necessarily need to buy organic. Organic simply just means that there is no pesticides, herbicides, or fertilizers used on those crops. So when you think about it, if you have something with a peel in those products were used during the whole production of the plant to the harvest, you don't have to worry about it because you're peeling off everything that was being, I don't want to say coated with this.
Exposed, maybe?
Exposed, exactly. That's the proper term. But what I will say is I am someone where I'm not forcing people to buy organic. It is expensive. It's not convenient. It's something that has caused a lot of controversy, actually. And what I will say is food is food. Vegetable, whether it is organic or not, is going to provide you with the exact same amount of nutrients. So there is no need to feel as if you need to be purchasing organic foods. It is the exact same as a food that is non-organic. You're going to get the exact same vitamins, the exact same minerals, the exact same nutrients from that product. So I'm someone, I personally do not buy organic fruits and vegetables because I know it's the exact same. It's just, I don't want to say a marketing tactic, but it's a way to increase that price in a sense of just saying, hey, this doesn't provide or doesn't have these products being used on the farms. So we're going to say it's quote unquote healthier when in a sense there is nothing different. It is just the fact that on the farm, herbicides, pesticides, etc., were not being used. The product itself is still the exact same. An orange that's organic versus non-organic is the exact same nutrient, vitamin, mineral content to itself.
That's interesting. I haven't heard it put that way. So thank you for clearing that up. On that aspect, how important is it to wash our vegetables? Like, how do you properly wash our fruits and vegetables? And what about those spray cleaners that are like, that you find above the apples and the bananas, the veggie wash, whatever they're called? Do you use those? I mean, do you just rinse with water? What is the best way to kind of, clean what it is that we're eating?
Yeah, so I was always brought up with washing or scrubbing your fruits or vegetables just under running water. Those sprays and everything, I'm going to be honest, I avoid it because again, I sit there and I look at it and it's going to do the job that water does. Water is free. We don't need a product to do it. And I don't even know what's in these products. I don't know what they're putting in them. I have truly not even looked at them because water does the job. I will say again, I don't want to say against the grain of what a lot of people will say. I do not wash my fruits and vegetables. I am someone that truly believes that you can eat it. If there's anything on the outside, your body's going to take care of it for you. That's what our body is there for. It's there to fight against anything that it doesn't want in it. And it's there to take in the nutrients that we are feeding it. So I know there was like a viral TikTok that went around a little bit ago of an actor who was just talking about not washing his berries before he ate them. And I sat there, I was like, yeah, that's me. Like, I will sit there, get a carton of blueberries and not even wash them. I will just be popping them in my mouth as I'm walking through the grocery store. Like, that's just what I do. But if you are someone that feels the need to wash your fruits and vegetables, definitely running water is the way to go. You do not need to be spending the extra money on those sprays and everything else. So definitely water does the trick. You have water in your house, just use it.
Just use it. I've always been a water. I had the same thing. I just put everything underwater. If I have a lot that I'm using, I'll put it in a strainer and just rinse it or give it a little shake in the, in the plastic container.
I will say if there's like, sometimes you see on apples, lately I haven't been getting this, but in the past I've seen like a super waxy film on some apples that I will definitely wash and like scrub with a paper towel after I wash it to get it off. Or sometimes like, I think the only other thing I really wash is grapes. Sometimes those have like excess dirt or something on them. And I'm like, yeah, I'll just rinse them off real quick. It's painless and you can rinse them off at the same time, stick them in a strainer and right in the fridge. So yeah, use water. We need more water in our lives too. So keep drinking water.
This is true. Drink the water. Get that H2O in your body.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Now tell me, I know that I just always have, and I think just because I was brought up this way, I know that strawberries, oranges, apples, all of those are not in a refrigerated section in a grocery store. But when I get them home, they go in the refrigerator. I like my fruit cold. Does that decrease like the life of the vegetable or the fruit? I guess even with vegetables, because I put like sweet peppers and stuff in the fridge. Should you be keeping them on the counter?
So there are some foods that they definitely recommend, like just stay on the counter. And I don't know why the only one I can think of right now off the top of my head is avocados. But what I will say, and what I personally have found with a lot of fruits and vegetables, I'm just like you. I come home from the grocery store. I will throw almost everything into the fridge except for my like bananas, onions, potatoes, like, those general things,
Right.
And then avocados. But what I have noticed is things like bananas and avocados, when they become ripe, you can throw them in the fridge and they actually stay at that like ripeness a little longer than it would if you just kept it out on the counter. So when an avocado becomes like ripe or it's just before it's ready to be eaten, I'll toss it in the fridge and it seems to stay for a few more days, where if I would have left it on the counter, it would have gone bad tomorrow. Just like bananas too. The second I know it's turning and it's going to be the perfect banana tomorrow, I'm sticking it in the fridge. I will say the outside of the banana will still turn brown, but the inside will taste just as it did when you put it in the fridge. That's just something I personally found, and I absolutely love my little tip and trick there. So save those bananas, or what I do too is I freeze them for smoothies. Those are always super good.
Yes, freeze them. Duh. Oh my gosh. But yes, put them in a smoothie or make banana bread.
Yeah, I will freeze everything. So if I know like strawberries, blueberries, any berries I get, I put those in the fridge too. I personally refrigerate almost all the produce I get. Again, except for those few that I mentioned. But if berries are starting to go bad or they are looking a little mushy, of course, before there's mold on them, I will put them in the freezer. Use them for smoothies or even blend them up. You can make dressings out of it. People have let them thaw and then use them in breads or cookies or danishes, things like that. I mean, you can do so much with frozen fruit that we just don't realize. And it's definitely a way to just decrease waste and just throwing out money basically at that point. Because sometimes I'll get strawberries and I'm throwing out half a container because they just went moldy so quick.
Oh my gosh. And they do. It's like it's one day and you're like, what the heck just happened to my strawberries? Yeah, it's crazy how sometimes they just turn so quickly like that.
But I would
But
say too,
yeah.
I know on refrigerators, some have those drawers. It definitely is a humidity controlled environment in the drawers. So always play with that too. I have found sometimes if you like open the vent or close the vent a little more, things will stay a little more fresh, especially
Mhm.
those fruits and vegetables. But yeah, that would be my biggest
Hmm.
recommendation. Freeze everything. Save
That's
yourself the
yeah.
money, freeze everything. You can use it when the summer comes around. My freezer definitely gets stocked in the winter because the last thing I want is a smoothie when it's negative degrees outside here, but definitely save it for
Right.
the summer, freeze everything. I even freeze avocados. I'll dice them up, toss them in the freezer, toss them in smoothies, just everything.
That's great to know. It's a good thing you mentioned that because I don't know why I have not been doing that all along. Because it's like, how expensive is it to buy the Dole frozen fruit bags in the grocery store? And it's the same thing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's the same thing. Wow.
Exactly. And what I will say
Mind
too
blowing.
is like, even if it's, I tell myself this all the time, even if it's just one or two strawberries that you're like, okay, I'm really not going to eat them in the next few days and they're going to go bad, throw them in because at that point, every week, if you're getting a carton, 1 to 2 strawberries goes such a long way because you may not be in the mood for a smoothie or using frozen strawberries for something. But when you are ready, you're going to have a whole freezer bag full of them at that point. So then you're going to love using them and just be able to do anything you want with them.
This is true. And kind of to just piggyback on that, when your little ones want a sweet treat and frozen sweet treat in the summertime, put them in your blender, add some water or coconut water, right? Put them in a little popsicle container and freeze them and then give them the treats for summer or whenever they're hot and they want a sweet treat. And that's, yes, I used to do that when the kids were little. I should still do that, at least for myself. That's
I know
amazing.
it's things we would definitely enjoy too, but I am a sucker for just frozen blueberries. Or frozen grapes. I don't know if you've ever tried them.
Oh,
Just frozen blueberries or grapes are one of my favorite things. In the summer when it's super hot and you just need a refreshing treat, I will just go into my freezer, pick out a frozen grape and just pop it in. And it's like, I don't want to say it's like a slushy inside the grape, but it is like, it's this
ooh.
frozen perfect grape that's just, it's so good. And it won't break your teeth, I promise. If you feel that way
Wow.
and you're nervous, let it sit up for a minute, but it's
Right.
super delicious. It is. It really is. And it's so
Oh my,
refreshing.
that's awesome. I have never had a frozen grape before, but that's good. And you know what? I wonder as an adult treat, if you soak them in like wine before that, right? There you go.
I do
Or you
always
could,
put my frozen fruit in a glass of wine before I pour it. Instead of ice cubes, I
there
don't
you
want it
go.
watered down. I want it flavored.
Yes, that makes so much sense. It's kind of, I mean, I guess too, if you don't like, and I don't love to drink regular plain water, it's just like I will, but it's just so blah. I mean, if I'm not drinking lemon water, then if you have just an old ice cube tray, right, put your fruit in there and freeze it, and then drop a couple of the ice cubes with the fruit in it, and then you at least have some sort of fruity flavored water. I guess there's a ton of endless things that we could do with fruit now that we're kind of talking about it, but that have never crossed my mind when I'm actually in the kitchen doing something.
For
So,
sure. You definitely don't think of it on
yeah.
the spot. You see
Yeah.
a mush or again, you see something that's not perfect to your eye and you're like, gotta throw it out. Nope, freeze it. You can do so much.
Yeah,
So
for
definitely keep
sure.
that in mind. Stop wasting it. Freeze it.
Exactly. Right. Freezer is our friend, right? All right. Can you kind of tell us what the best oils are for our bodies, and I don't know what may be a good substitution if people are really, struggling with what to use and when to use it?
Yeah. So I always use olive oil. Sorry, I blanked for a second. Again, going back to being Italian, olive oil, we have a million containers in the kitchen at all times. Olive oil is just my go-to. But what I will say is just plant oils in general are going to be super beneficial. So I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I mean, coconut oil is a good one. But what we need to remember too is all oils are going to have fat in them. And sometimes I know that stresses people out and they're like trying to find the lowest fat option.
Right.
Oil is fat in a sense. So always understand that when going into it. Oil is oil. It's going to act the same in our body. I have seen lately a lot of people say, like, if you can't read the ingredients, or they're not like natural ingredients, or they're more chemical ingredients on the nutrition label in the ingredient list, a lot of people will deem them as bad. But from my perspective too, I mean, a banana, that's chemicals right there. We just don't think about it as that. Like, all food is made up of chemicals. That doesn't mean that they're bad for us, if that makes sense. So I would definitely say, at the end of the day, oil is oil, fat is fat. Our body is going to take it in and ingest it and break it down just as if it were a fat. Our body doesn't understand the difference between an olive oil, a coconut oil, a vegetable oil, a peanut oil. It all goes in our body, and it's all just looked at as fat. It will break it down the way it needs to, because granted, all oils are going to have different components in it. But our body at the end of the day is taking that oil, understanding that it is a fat, and it's going to absorb it and transport it wherever our body needs that fat at the end of the day. So I will always say oil is oil, fat is fat, because it is. That's how our body takes it. So I personally don't have like a bad rap on vegetable oils by any means.
Just so many different oils out there too. And, I mean, why are there so many different oils? And then there's some that you can only use specifically to cook on heat, right? Some aren't good when you want to cook on your stovetop. But yeah, there's, and I feel like there's just so many more now. I mean, even to make specific dressings, I was like looking to make some homemade dressings, and it's got like this balsamic oil with a vinegar and something, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know where to find these things. They're not in my local grocery store. So then I'm Googling what to substitute if you don't have the specific product. So like right now, I literally have like 7 different oils in my house. And that is way more than I've ever had. Like I said, I've only ever used vegetable oil.
Yeah.
So I'm like looking at them now, I'm going, which one would be better? And I have noticed, like, obviously there's color difference, and then some can be thicker.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's one, like if you want to fry homemade French fries or like chicken fingers or something, maybe there's one that works better. Or what's the best one for frying foods?
All oils have a different smoke point, is what they call it. So that means, like, how hot can it be heated up before it burns? So I will say vegetable oil is one of the best oils to use for frying. I definitely would recommend if you are trying to fry foods, because it does have one of the higher smoke points, again, before it burns. So you can heat that up a lot more than things like an olive oil, coconut oil, etc. But what I will say too is, I mean, vegetable oil is a very common plant-based oil. So it still is plant-based. It's just made from canola, corn, palm, soybean, or even sunflower oils. So it can be a mixture, or even just like a different combination of all of those things, which again, all are plant-based. And it depends too. I mean, if people have a soy allergy, they're probably avoiding vegetable oil because it is more of that soy-based oil.
I did not know that there was soy in vegetable oil. That's good to know.
The hardest part about, I don't want to say the hardest part about having my job, is there are controversial topics being brought up every second of every day on one food is good for you, this food is bad for you. So my biggest recommendation is truly, one, find a dietitian who focuses on that, or who you can get this information from, because they are going to know the updated research. Being a dietitian, we are always looking up the latest research from credible sources. So if that is the case, or even you want to do the research yourself, make sure that the source is credible. And if you are looking at a source, make sure it's a research article. And I know those aren't fun to read. They are so confusing sometimes. Even going through school and having to like write thesis papers on research, like that was not my specialty, but reading through the research and really diving into the why behind these things. But understand too, like, gather a bunch of different research from a bunch of different credible sources, because there is always going to be some bias. There's going to be someone out there saying seed oils are causing more heart problems, where other people are going to say they don't cause heart problems, it's everything else, or the food that you're making with those oils is going to be the problem. So that's something too to always keep in mind. But I would truly just say, if you're really confused or trying to figure out nutrition information, either find a dietitian or try and do your research the best you can with credible sources. And I would definitely say always try to find those research articles. Don't just go to like WebMD or Healthline. Sometimes they can be helpful, but I would definitely say, if it is a topic like that, try and find some research articles on it and really compare it with a non-biased eye is a huge thing. So,
right. I can totally agree with that. And it's got to also be hard too, I would imagine, as a dietitian, because there are so many different diets now out there. You know, what is good for this person and what is good for this person. And while, yeah, this XYZ might be a good diet, but maybe it's not a great diet for you specifically. I think you got to have a healthy balance, because otherwise then you kill it. You're like, oh, I can't do it any longer. You have to sometimes, you know, you have a craving, so it's okay once in a while, but just don't continue that. Have that, you know, self-control to continue on your path, but don't overindulge, right?
yeah. So I will say my biggest thing is I am like a non-restrictive dietitian when it comes to food. All foods fit. And it's when you have a craving, I want you to eat it. I'm the one telling my clients like, oh, you want a brownie today? Go get one. Like, don't sit there and say, oh, I can't have one, because that right there is what causes our restriction and binge cycle. So the second we restrict foods, and what I primarily focus on is people who are restricting the carbs or who are restricting those carb-based options, whether that be the pasta or even things like dessert. I mean, we restrict ourselves so much sometimes it causes our body to overindulge when it is in front of us. But I challenge everyone to understand the fact of, yeah, you can overindulge in those things. And I understand that it may be looked at in a negative light, but you also need to realize that that overindulging is caused by you restricting those foods. So when you restrict them, you are of course going to be craving them a lot more. And the second that option is available to you, you almost feel like it's either now or never. I need to eat as much as I possibly can, because I'm just going to go back next day and say, I can't have that again for however long it may be. With me, I am really teaching my clients to understand that all foods are available to you at all times. There is no such thing as good or bad foods. You can truly have whatever you would like to eat whenever you'd like to eat it. Of course, that does disregard if you have food allergies, if you have intolerances or sensitivities. That's when it gets tough. I mean, my clientele is a very general population where it's anyone with restrictions. I'm not focusing on those medical nutrition diets in a sense. It's let's primarily talk through if you feel like you're restricting because it was brought up to you on social media, it was a part of a fad diet in the past, it is something that you just felt self-conscious with, or someone made you feel that way that you couldn't, or it was just a mindset of these foods are bad, I needed to avoid it. So really allowing them to understand that all foods are available. And when you have the option to have a brownie, put it this way, if you had a brownie in front of you every single day, there's going to be days you sit there and you're like, I don't want the brownie. Like I just had one yesterday. I don't need it. Like I'm not really feeling the brownie. I just really don't want it today. That's what happens to our mindset when we understand that we can have any food any day or any time that we want. It's the second we start telling ourselves this food is bad, we shouldn't be having it, we can't eat it. That's when we get on this cycle of we are going to start overindulging in foods. So when we're on super restrictive diets, it's tough because our body's going to sit there and say, I really want a brownie today. I really want all the foods this person's telling me I can't have. And that's truly why I love doing what I do, because there are so many people out there, even when you go to the doctor's office, they might say, well, oh, this is going on in your body. You should probably consider restricting this food or limiting your intake of X, Y, and Z. And you're going to leave there and be like, The doctor told me this is a really bad food. I shouldn't be eating it. Okay, but let's talk through why though. Why is that a food they want you to restrict? Let's figure out the mindset of, okay, well, when you start to restrict those foods, you're going to be eating more of it. So things like that. I mean, social media is a huge thing. I shouldn't have thrown doctors out there because sometimes they know what they're doing. But social media in another stance, like you will see some of these influencers saying, go gluten-free. You should go gluten-free. It makes you feel so much better. But in reality, going gluten-free doesn't mean that it's healthy for you. If you're not someone who has celiac disease or has a sensitivity or allergy to gluten, I beg you, do not go gluten-free, because I promise you, you're missing out on all the nutrients that are in gluten-filled foods. So it's something like that too, where I understand the people who have those allergies. It's something close to my heart. I understand, I know it, I'm familiar with it. And sometimes you just have to make it work if it is an allergy or is something that causes issues within your diet. Then by all means, find your substitutions that work for you. And going back to what you said before too, my way of figuring out, instead of really going on a detox and starting from square one again, I journaled everything. I mean, I was 7 years old. I had a notepad of paper on the counter. Every time I would go to grab something from the kitchen, my mom and I would stand there and be like, okay, what am I eating? How do I feel right now? How do I feel after? How do I feel an hour from then? If I'm still feeling okay, that's a safe food for me. Or if I'm feeling okay, and then later in the day, there's something that goes on, I think about any other day that I had those reoccurring foods and if I had a problem then. It's like a scavenger hunt. It's like playing Tetris with what you're eating in a day. But journaling was truly like my saving grace, because every body is different and everybody is different. So when a doctor or a dietitian comes to you and you have a chronic disease or you have some sort of condition that's going on where nutrition is playing a huge role, they may tell you, hey, these are the foods you need to avoid. But that's such a generalized list. That is every single thing they have found throughout history of foods that need to be avoided. But what affects me could not affect you. Maybe with lactose intolerance in specific, I was someone that could always have yogurt that actually helped me. I could have cheese, all the hard cheeses, I should say. But when it came to ricotta cheese or ice cream or straight up milk, you wouldn't see me. But there are other people with lactose intolerance who couldn't get near yogurt. They couldn't get near cheddar cheese. They couldn't get near any dairy related product because that affected them. So I think too, it comes through as, hey, there's this whole list of foods I shouldn't eat. But if you go throughout your day and you personally know for your body that some of those foods on that list aren't affecting you in the way that research or whoever this person is giving you the information, by all means speak up about it, because that's something too where if you know you can have, I don't know, let's say white bread and it doesn't affect you and it doesn't make you feel bloated, or it's just something simple like that, you know that your body doesn't react to that, great, by all means don't cut it out then. Like the last thing I need you to do is be restricting that food when you personally know that your body is okay with having that and it's not taking it as if it was a foreign invader, if that makes sense. Because the second our body can't break something down, it's trying to fight against it. And that's something too where if you personally know you can have it, but I can't, definitely be in mind of and be in tune of your own body and be able to understand that, hey, I have this whole list of foods I shouldn't be eating in front of me. But maybe if one day I want to try something on that list, I'm going to mark how I feel before and after. We're going to see how it goes. And if you feel fine and you're like, oh my gosh, that had no effect on how I feel or what's going on in my body, I didn't feel like I had to rush to the bathroom for any reason or X, Y, and Z, please keep it in, because the last thing I want is for people to be restricting such important nutrients in our system, because nutrients are a part of everything. And like I said, with the fruits and vegetables, organic versus non-organic, they all have the same nutrients, vitamins, and minerals. So it just comes to the tough part of when you're restricting things like carbs or even proteins, for instance, you're missing out on a lot of those important nutrients that I really want to make sure that everyone is getting in their life because it's important.
Thank you so much. In closing, can you just talk a little bit about your company, Eats Nutrition, right? That is the company that you just founded not too long ago, right?
Yeah, it was definitely something I started, I want to say 2 years ago now, but it just became like a legal business within the last few months for sure. So it was definitely a process. COVID had a huge effect on that, but no, it's finally through and it is a full-on business now. So yeah.
Awesome. All right. Tell us a little bit about if somebody would like to work with you as a registered dietitian. How can they get in touch with you? What do you offer? Stuff like that.
For sure. So I kind of touched on it a little earlier. So I work with a lot of clients who are really either focusing on, they've gone through these fad diets, they've tried some of these diets, or they've been restricting certain foods. Again, in particular, I love working with people who have restricted the carbs in the past. But if you ever feel like you are just having a really tough time with restricting and finding how to really see foods as good again. I mean, we have this mentality of foods are bad, but I'm here to kind of tell you there are no bad foods. Who's telling you that? Who's here to tell us what we can and cannot eat? So if you feel like you're really just trying to find confidence in making food choices, that's really what I focus on. So with that and my history of things, not with food allergies, but my other past, I talk about it a little on Instagram now and again, but I really focus on finding food and body confidence. And I have a program called the Food Body Confidence Approach. It really works through just 3 different areas of let's getting rid of those restrictive mindsets around certain foods. Let's find that body confidence again and really try and work on our mindset around our body and how we treat it, because that all has a play in how we eat. So then it goes into focusing on finding that food confidence and understanding how can we eat food and feel confident and not guilty or feel fearful when we have food in front of us. So if that sounds like something that anyone is interested in, I would definitely say head to my Instagram. I'm super, super avid Instagram person. I love being on there. So it's just eats_nutrition_. I try and keep all the names the same. That I'm on TikTok. I'm really trying to be up with the trends now. I'm really trying to get on these new social media platforms. That or even my website. And through my Instagram too, I have links to everything. I have a link to my website, to a program application, to book a free discovery call. So I have a bunch of links for a lot of different things. So if that's something anyone is interested, find me on social media or go to my website. We can definitely talk through some things, or even email me. I love just like old fashioned, let's just email.
Great. Yes. Email.
eats.nutrition@gmail.com, because I know not everyone is a social media lover. So if that's the case, please shoot me an email. I will send you all the links you're looking for, or even send you in the right direction of how we can really work together. Because again, I just love being able to help people and make them realize that they don't have to restrict things. And sometimes food and enjoying food in our life is more about adding food on. It's not taking food away from us. So that's a really huge thing I love focusing on.
Yes, love that. Add food on, don't take it away.
Yeah.
Don't take away my brownie. I need my chocolate.
Exactly. So yeah, I am open to taking one-on-one clients. That's what the program is for right now. I am really excited and hoping to expand soon to do more either group stuff in the future. But for right now, it is one-on-one, but I am open to accepting clients for this month still. So definitely get in before I fill up and don't have room anymore. So jump on it.
Fantastic. Get on over there to Eats Nutrition. I will put everything in the show notes so you don't have to get out your pen and paper and be like, go back and try and figure out what she said. But so all of your links will be down there so everybody can get a hold of you if they want some more Lauren yumminess and check out her reels because they are super fun and informative as well. I do love what you kind of concoct sometimes. I'm like, ooh, that looks yummy. I like that. But food does not have to be our enemy. Food is our friend. And so is the freezer. Don't forget about your freezer. Freeze them almost not so yummy strawberries and do something with them. There's a lot to do. So yes. Okay. Real quickly, before we end, I have to ask every guest just so everybody gets a little bit more to know you more personally. So if you could go back to any time period in your life, it can be childhood, high school, young adulthood, what period would you pick and why?
I would pick right now. I'm going to be honest.
Okay.
I'm not someone that loves living in the past because I have learned from so much in my past, which is why I am where I am today. I have never felt more confident or proud of how far I've come until now. I mean, again, I'll kind of little snippet into why I created the food body confidence approach is I was someone that was restricting foods. I was someone that was trying to find those substitutions when it wasn't needed because I didn't feel happy with how I looked. It was all actually while I was trying to become a dietitian. I was comparing myself to everyone out there, and it just took a lot of time figuring out how do I be confident in my own skin and how do I realize I don't need to work off the food I ate. I can eat whatever I want and be happy with it without feeling guilty or fearful. And I truly have found that. I have found that confidence level of I'm not sitting here saying I can't have that brownie because weight's going to be added on or I'm going to have to work it off at the gym tomorrow. I've really gotten to that mindset of no, I'm happy. I go to the gym because I love going to the gym and I love seeing how strong I can physically be instead of saying I love going to the gym because I'm working off everything I ate this whole weekend or what I ate yesterday. So yeah, I would truly just say right now, I feel like the most confident and just proud person I could be of myself looking from the outside in.
I love that. That's so great. And I love that you can say that about yourself. You know, everybody I feel is so down on themselves when it's like, give yourself a little credit. You deserve a little bit of credit. You go through a lot on a daily basis and make good choices. And those are all wins, whether they're big or small. You have to celebrate yourself. So that's awesome. I love that. And one more question. What advice for anybody would you give for someone that is suffering with a chronic condition or inflammation? Is there any specific advice that you would give them?
I would say this is going to be the most general advice, but it is so important. Anyone, whether it be chronic condition or just any struggle in general, don't do it alone. Find the help, seek someone who specializes in what you're going through, whether that be the chronic illness or autoimmune disease or just anything in life. Coaches need coaches. That's one of my favorite things. I go to people because sometimes I can't help myself. We all need to understand nowadays that asking for help is not a sign of weakness. In my mind, I think of it as a sign of strength because you're understanding you need someone else to help you with something. So that's the most general advice, but it truly is just so important of understanding you can't do it alone. You need someone there to guide you and help you through it. And again, it's not losing who you are. It's just figuring out what life is going to look like for you and having someone there to help you when you don't really know all the answers and they may not either, but having someone to bounce those ideas off of or bounce those feelings of how you're feeling after you eat food or how you're feeling on a day-to-day and bouncing those ideas off of someone else is always so helpful. It does really take a whole weight off your shoulders. So I would definitely say just seek help from a specialist. That would be my biggest advice.
That is so, so good. That is so good. It is so true because that is the reason why I wanted to create this whole 123 Mom Squad was to create a community for women that need and feel that they want more support for what, for those that may have the same type of, struggles and whatnot, but that we don't need to be the person to everybody all the time. And we don't have to have all the answers, like you said. it's kind of just, it takes you a minute to realize that. And once you do realize that you don't, that you don't need to be everything and know everything, kind of like a light turns on in your head and you're like, man, you know what? I just took a huge weight off my shoulders. And now I can talk to somebody else that may be going through something similar, and we can totally talk about it. And that is like a therapy session right there. Even talking to you and all my other guests, it's like everybody has all these inspiring stories and how they get through things and get through days. And yeah, we all have bad seasons, but we don't have to stay there. We can be there for each other. We can lend a helping hand and just be there. You don't have to do it alone. So, well, Lauren, thank you so much for your time. I will put everything in the show notes for everybody to check out your coaching program and all your reels. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much for your
All
time
right.
having me on the show. I loved it. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon, Lauren. Thank you.